this new episode of the News at Cat. By Cat, agorically denying that just because we're being sponsored to make these videos now means we've sold out in some way. No, I like to think of it as grabbing viewers by the pussy. Right, we're not doing that. Just because we've started to get funding for these videos doesn't mean we're going to sell out and just do anything because it's popular. So, let's start with a makeup tutorial. Now, viewers often write to me and say, Kate, how can I achieve a sophisticated, older look? And here are my top tips. Start by exfoliating. Now, if you're lucky enough to have grown up in an area which is now a war zone, you can use the rubble of your former family home, which will have been ground to a fine powder by daily bombing raids. And for those stubborn, hard-to-reach areas, fast-moving shrapnel. If, like me, you're from North London, just use some oatmeal or apricot kernel or something. Next, try a chemical peel with sarin, mustard gas or chlorine. Or a sunlight facial by simply sleeping rough for a couple of years as you attempt to walk to safety. Remember, salt water is very good for the skin, but try not to drink too much if the overcrowded dinghy you're in capsizes in the middle of the Mediterranean. And pay attention to your diet. Remember, this has a real impact on your skin condition, so try to eat mostly grass seeds or oatmeal handed out by refugee aid agencies, but not the organic stone-rolled oatmeal. Leave that for us North London types in case we need a face mask. Finally, why not go for some contouring? And one real shortcut to get that older than my years look is to try fighting for your very existence in a refugee camp among actual adults, which is commonly known as the jungle. This week, a handful of refugee children arrived in the UK from the refugee camp in Calais. And I got in a spot of bother for suggesting there might be legitimate reasons why some of them looked older than they really were. I was on ITV's This Morning show with presenters Ruth and Eamon and Britain's leading Donald Trump impersonator, LBC Radio's Nick Ferrari. According to The Express, a row exploded after I retorted to a question and then raged twice. OK Magazine said things got feisty after I snapped at presenter Eamon Holmes. Here's their description of the carnage. She said, "Let me finish my sentence, please." Eamon tried to interject again to ask the same question, but she cut him off with, "Let me finish my sentence." Yeah, it's so rude not to let someone interrupt you when you're in the middle of a sentence about human rights. Then OK Magazine quotes a random Twitter user who says, "I wish she'd let other people talk. So fucking rude. Hashtag this morning." Which gives me an idea for a new business. Hello and welcome to Kate Smurthwaite's School of Fucking Etiquette. Now, remember not to keep talking when you're fucking well interrupted, you cunting arse biscuits. Let's see how bad it really was.
Well, funnily enough, I take this very radical view that I don't think the best way to assess the age of a refugee who's probably travelled from a war zone, potentially had to come across the Mediterranean in unsafe transport, who's then spent 6 months living in a refugee camp. To be honest, I think any of us would look about 100 by the end of that. I don't think the best way to assess somebody's age is for Nick Ferrari to have a look and see what he thinks.
But Kate, a blind man on a galloping horse could see that's not a child.
Frankly, I don't care. This is the situation right now. Let me finish my sentence.
No, but you'd open the doors to everyone then.
No, I haven't. Let me finish my sentence. Here is the situation. We have promised as a country to let in 20,000 refugees. We've let in 39 so far. Yeah. Now,
Oh, how rude, especially to blind equestrians who might not actually be racist. But, let's talk. So firstly, if I have to be rude to be allowed to make a point about the human rights of children escaping violent conflict, then you know what, fuck it, I'm rude, I don't even care. Secondly, isn't it slightly more rude to deny entry to the UK to children who have a right to be here and who may well die otherwise? Oh, and thirdly, does anyone else think they might have invited a comedian on daytime TV thinking she'd be a pushover and not expecting her to know all the facts and data and have some really good points to make? To come across the Mediterranean in unsafe transport.
Eamon. We're losing the racist Brexit voters because she's using sound coherent logic. Interrupt her with some Irish whimsy. I don't know, something about a blind man on a horse.
But Kit, a blind man on a galloping horse.
So, since I do seem to know more about the situation than a couple of much-loved TV presenters and a much-loved by UKIP voting Brexiteers radio presenter, for the record, here are the facts. The children who've already arrived in the UK were always supposed to be in the age range 14 to 17. They don't prioritise the ones that look young and adorable and fit a patronising colonialist image of neediness that makes us all feel good about ourselves. They prioritise the ones for whom the aid agencies have been able to assemble the huge swathes of complicated paperwork and cross-checks that are required to bring them to the UK. They're coming here under the Dublin regulations, which means that they're coming to join family who are already established in the UK. And if you're not cool with that, presumably you've looked at your own 17-year-old and thought, well, he's starting to get a little bit of facial hair, so I'm totally cool with him being forced to live in a foreign country where he doesn't speak the language and doesn't know anyone on his own. It also means that these young people are coming to stay with established families, so the costs to us of bringing them in are absolutely minimal, and they're only a few years away from being old enough to get a job and contribute to our society anyway. We've also agreed to take in about 3,000 children from the jungle in Calais under the Dubs Amendment, and that's named after Lord Dubs, not, as some have suggested, after Dappy from N-Dubs, who is not a member of the House of Lords. Yet. Lord Dubs himself was rescued from Nazi Germany on the Kindertransport, and we don't really look back at that and go, oh, they should have vetted them more carefully, some of them didn't look as young as I would like. We look back and think, why didn't we take loads more and loads of adults as well? We let people die and it was our fault. Incidentally, the camp in Calais is now being demolished, which means that aid agencies say there's complete panic spreading across the camp. We've already seen children dying because they're trying to climb into wheel arches and stow themselves away to get to the UK. We've also had reports of lots of young people running away from the camp, and aid agencies say that they will go straight into the hands of human traffickers. Britain has also agreed to take 20,000 Syrian refugees over 5 years, and we're actually way behind on that commitment. When David Cameron announced it, he appointed a dedicated Minister for Refugees. Now, admittedly, being the Tory Minister for Refugees is a little bit like being the Green Party Shadow Minister for Airports or Jeremy Corbyn's wardrobe assistant. But this guy's job was to manage the scheme, and then over the summer Theresa May got rid of him and didn't bother replacing him. I sure hope he didn't fall off the dinghy on the way back to his duck island. The suggestion from Mr Ferrari and other sabre-rattling little Englanders is that we should x-ray the children's teeth to verify their age. Yeah, great plan. Perhaps we could also measure their skulls with calipers, Mr Ferrari. It doesn't even work. All they can do is check whether your wisdom teeth have gone through. And look, I'm 40 and mine are not even through, okay? The other question they keep asking is, why aren't there any child refugees who look young, and why aren't there any girls? And the obvious answer is that there are. Photos of some younger looking refugees and some girls are actually also out there. But if there seems to be a shortage of younger looking refugees and girls being shown in the papers, that might be for one of three reasons. One, because there are, but their pictures don't help sell newspapers to racists. Secondly, because publishing photos of vulnerable-looking young children makes you seem like a complete asshole and is illegal. And thirdly, if there are less young-looking children and girls in a refugee camp, which we know has been targeted by human traffickers, then we maybe ought to ask the question why the traffickers have taken so many girls and young-looking children. And then we might not want to not think about the answer because it's absolutely fucking terrifying. But, you know, I'm just a comedian, right?